Words matter, and words are used strategically to try to ensure that you have a visceral reaction to something as opposed to a logical reaction to something. Your task is not to take the bait. Thank you to the founding sponsor of unDivided, 1530 Mortgage. Visit them at 1530mortgage.com. I talked Friday on the podcast about a hotline set up to tattle on people who are trying to repeal Washington state's tax on capital gains. The tax is a tax on the profits from the sale of things like stocks and bonds. Here's what you get when you call that hotline.
Thanks for calling. Please let us know where you saw a signature gatherer for I-1929, the tax cut for the super rich. Make sure to also tell us when you saw them, if they were paid or volunteer, if you could tell, and what they said to you. Thanks.
Now, in addition to that blatant voter intimidation, the folks who are in favor of keeping the tax on capital gains are trying to manipulate the public into making this a debate about identity politics, as opposed to a debate about the merits of the tax. Let's discuss in our segment, Unbelievable. The chair of the Washington State Democratic Party, Tina Polodowski, is using identity politics to try to vilify those who are opposed to the tax on capital gains. The goal, of course, is to make this about the people who will be taxed as opposed to the legality or the merits of the tax itself. She wrote on Twitter, "Friends don't let friends sign petitions that give billionaires tax cuts and bankrupt our schools. 7 rich white dudes are paying for this initiative to get richer. Decline to sign. Call the hotline." The insinuation is that the only people opposed to this tax are rich white men, and apparently we are supposed to inherently hate rich white men. It is language that is not only intentionally divisive, but it's also really strange, as if we're supposed to decide tax policy on the basis of race. But it goes even further than that. Invest in Washington Now, which is trying to stop a voter-backed repeal of the capital gains tax, wants you to believe that this is about a handful of rich white men stealing money directly from your child's education. They made this flyer with the faces of a few white men in Washington, a couple of them might look familiar to you, who have a lot of money. Invest in Washington Now went on to write, "Some of Washington's super rich want to give themselves a huge tax cut and make the rest of us pay. To give themselves a tax cut, they want to take $500 million a year from Washington's Education Legacy Trust account." Now, that's an account in Washington state that's designed to expand access to higher education, but consider that language carefully. They want to take $500 million a year from Washington's Education Legacy Trust account. Again, that is intentionally misleading. These rich white men aren't trying to steal or take money out of any account or from anyone. They're trying to keep more of their own money. Words matter, and words are used strategically to try to ensure that you have a visceral reaction to something as opposed to a logical reaction to something. Your task is not to take the bait. Now, you might do research on the tax on capital gains and decide that you do actually support it, but at least you didn't come to that conclusion based on divisive identity politics, but rather your own efforts to understand what the tax is and whether we truly need it. If you like videos like this, make sure to become an unDivided subscriber to help us grow this mission to give common sense a comeback. You can do so in 2 ways, at patreon.com/undivided, or by becoming a contributor on my Locals community, brandikruse.locals.com. Thank you to the founding sponsor of unDivided, 1530 Mortgage. Visit them at 1530mortgage.com.